What's up, everybody? It's me, Noah. I just got done with a 27-hour day of work, and I came here to talk to you about what really grinds my gears, which is, of course, liberals. These liberals tell us that they stand for freedom, that they're the ones who support a free society. But what do they give us? What do they actually give us materially? What does liberal freedom mean? The freedom to be a sex worker? The freedom to run around the streets naked? That's the freedom of liberalism. We don't get any maternal leave. We spend all day working to make other people rich. But at least we can have as much sex as we want. At least we have this liberal, degenerate freedom. And this is what we're seeing against Iran right now. Iran is a country that treats working class people like me a lot better than the United States. All right, Iran, let me tell you about Iran and how they treat women. You know how much maternal leave they have in Iran by law? 9 months. 9 months off women get, and that is paid maternal leave. They're making money that time. 2/3 of that money is coming from the Iranian government and their social security fund. By comparison, what does the United States have? 0 maternity leave. 0. But hey, at least our women can tramp around in their underwear, because that's what real freedom is, right? Not freedom to be with your children, not freedom to take care of your family, but freedom to run around in your underwear. You gotta love the West. So now they're trying to turn this video of an Iranian girl running around in her underwear as justification for regime change, for the U.S. invading Iran and getting involved, to bring them freedom when we're not even taking care of our own women here at home. You all know I love my wife more than life itself. You know what would help my wife? Maternal leave. Not being able to run around in her underwear. She doesn't even want to do that anyways. It's stupid. But anyways, we got to get into the show today because I have to get to sleep in 30 minutes so I can wake up at 11 p.m. for work. So without further ado, let's get into it. What's up, Daniel? Thanks for being here again with me.
Nice to see you, Noah. How was work today?
It was hard. I feel like a lot of the other people at Midwestern Marks don't know what it's like to do a hard day's work. They've never, put in a day's work with their hands in their lives, especially Carlos. But I'm happy to be on here today. I actually was hoping to get some extra work in. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you got your hammer there. You can definitely get some work done with that.
Definitely. I never stop building. You know what they say, a carpenter's work is never done. So I just like to take it everywhere with me.
Yeah. Right. So what do you think about this election, Noah? It's coming down to the wire. It seems like it could go either way. What are your thoughts, or like, what do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
It's going to be interesting. I know for one, I'm ready to hammer some liberals on this Discord show today, but I mean, if anybody tells me that they're voting for Kamala Harris, I'm probably just going to laugh in their face because, what's she going to do for working class people like me? And if they tell me that they're voting for Trump, I'll probably laugh even harder because Trump is a huckster who tricked a bunch of working class people into thinking he stands for us, when I don't even think the guy owns a hammer, right? He probably hires immigrant labor for all of that shit. So I don't know how he's supposed to understand the plight of the working man in this country. So I'm not voting for either of them. And everybody who wants real change should join the ACP.
What is happening here? I leave for 5 minutes and you come in here and you just take my show. It's up for grabs?
This is my show, just like your cat is my cat. What are you going to do about it? I've got the hammer.
I mean, you're right. What can I do? Probably nothing, huh?
Exactly.
All right. Well,
all right. Now let's get to work on some construction.
what's up, everybody? I'm here actually. Apparently, Midwestern Morris is going through another split. I don't know what that sound effect was, but I liked it.
It's coming from Cleveland.
Okay. Well, that works. I like. I can't do an Eddie impression. That's the problem. Maybe I could like make my voice crack every now and then.
Maybe if you actually got some muscles and looked like a man.
Yeah, well, Eddie really took his loss in the rap battle very hard. Apparently, I'm sorry. I'm just that much better of a rapper than you, Eddie.
I still think I won, but at least they got my revenge.
As you guys can tell, I have Noah number 2 here with me tonight, and Daniel as well. But Daniel asked a question. I actually want to, like, for real, discuss this. Like, the elections are tomorrow, and I got to tell you, I literally could not care less. Like I'm just bombarded, and it's even like I try to watch TV with my wife, right? And by the way, what is going on with my camera? It's like real crazy right now. Like, what is happening? But anyway, I try to watch TV with my wife, and I just get like pounded with these ads that are like the silliest ads in the world about Sherrod Brown and I forget who the other guy is in Ohio, but it's like creepy someone who thinks he's a fake doctor, and like it's like Sherrod Brown is too liberal for Ohio. I don't care about any of these people at all anymore. I just can't bring myself to care. My life is not going to change because Kamala Harris or Donald Trump are president. The country is still going to be getting worse and worse every single day. I don't know. You guys talk though. I'm going to try to fix my camera settings.
Yeah, I just feel like even putting effort and time into a third party at this point, I just, like with the ACP strategy, I just think it's so much more prudent. Obviously, we have to prove ourselves still, but like there's so much time and energy and money on the left that goes into these bourgeois elections every year. And, you know, PSL and the Greens, I respect them for standing against the Democrats, but like they get relatively similar votes each year.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I get that they're standing up to the Democrats, but they're doing it through the bourgeois electoral system that we know is never going to let us win. So maybe we mobilize in workplaces and in communities. So why not put that effort at this point in time into organizing those workplaces and communities, which, you know, presidential campaigns don't really do. So I couldn't care less, but I mean, I'm not going to condemn anybody for voting either way or for voting third party. It is what it is, but I don't think it's the route to any kind of change.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, look, third parties, the Green Party and the Libertarian Party are the actual third parties in this country, right? How long have they been doing this? How many decades have they been trying to participate in bourgeois elections and getting kept off of ballots and getting locked out of debates? At what point do they say, oh, hey, this ain't going to work? You know what I mean? I feel like they're almost like a pressure release valve. That's a term that Carlos uses a lot of the time. Pressure release valve, right? For when you want to feel like you're against the system, if you vote for Jill Stein, that's going to attack the system for you. And I mean, speaking of Jill Stein, she's got a lot of imperialist inclinations anyway.
Yeah, like there was this this video actually that Hans-Jörg Moeller put out a few days ago on his channel, on his YouTube channel. He did that really amazing book on social media prophilicity, but he talks about how elections are magic that basically cast a spell on people, on the populace, that it's this idea of like the will of the people that that elections somehow represent that, but obviously that's not true. So I think it's even for like third party runs. I mean, to me, it's starting to like become really questionable the extent to which we sort of lead people on, to think that these elections are meaningful. And like, at what point do we actually just sort of like come to that realization that these elections are fake and we shouldn't even participate in them? To the extent that we even participate in them, we legitimate them. We legitimate that system.
Yeah, and that's one of my issues with PSL strategy. Again, like, nothing against them for running against the Democrats. I'm not accusing them of helping Trump or whatever these stupid arguments that are made are. But when you promise people that the revolution is right around the corner all the time, or promise people that they're part of the revolution and they feel like they're part of something big, and then nothing ever seems to materialize from it, it's an easy path to burnout. And that's, I think the main flaw of putting all our energy as left-wing organizations into the elections.
Look, I think it's interesting to me the way all of these sort of liberals who called themselves left-wing over the last period of history look at this. They have their sort of artificial community that they form, right? Their organizations, their movements, etc. And what they do is they come into our existing communities from outside, right? And say, hey, come vote for us. Hey, come give us money, right? And they take all this money from all these people and they do this big national election that has no chance whatsoever of even getting on the ballot in all 50 states. And then nothing happens. Nothing changes. Over the past 40 years, these liberals have changed literally nothing. They had the biggest protest demonstration in American history happen after George Floyd was murdered. And what were they able to change? Nothing. And at what point do we look at this and say, are they just stupid or is something else going on? And I don't mean to single anyone out, any organizations out. That's not what I'm doing. But when you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it's failing over and over and over again, is your point really to win or is it not? Because they get quite a lot in campaign donations. I'm just saying.
Agreed. And again, it's not to shit on anybody who's trying to stand against the Democrats. It just seems like a flawed strategy. And then there's people at the top of these organizations, who are making a good living off of it. And it's like, at what point are you just being stagnant and collecting people's money and burning them out? So I think it's totally fair to ask these questions, especially after we saw the Democrats, come together, the liberal establishment come together to prevent Bernie Sanders from winning the primary. We should be asking these questions of, is this really a tool for change, the elections, or is it, a magic trick to trick people into thinking that we have real democracy and we shouldn't be putting our time and energy into it anyways?
Wizards, brother. Wizards.
Wizards. Don't trust them.
You know my feeling on wizards. I am anti. But no, I don't know. I just like the liquidated party, right? The old one. They are constantly like saying the same thing over and over again, right? This is the worst, most important election of our lifetimes. You better vote against fascism and other ridiculous nonsense, right? And they've been saying this for 30 years. And so they've been on the side of the Democrats over that 30 years. Sometimes the Democrats win, sometimes the Democrats lose. And the entire time we've been on a steady decline in our living standards, right? Like nothing they're doing is changing anything. And there's just, I don't know, maybe it's just me and I'm getting more cynical in my old age, but I think like there's a point where we have to assume some other sort of intent.
Yeah, true. Could be. And that's why I mentioned, the amount of money that some of these organizations are making, even if they take good positions, like, it doesn't necessarily mean the leadership of these organizations are corrupted by Wall Street or corrupted by the big banks, but maybe they've just grown complacent collecting dues money and living in a nice home. It makes sense. That's one of the reasons we haven't accepted dues at the ACP, and we're trying to find other ways to raise money so that the leadership can't become complacent just collecting money from our members like a pyramid scheme. Why are we race-stating against wizards? That is a really bigoted position of Noah's.
Look, I don't trust them. All right. They're shifty. You never know what's under those, big purple hats and the dresses they always wear with the stars and the moons on them. Could be anything, right? Could be a gun, could be a knife, could be another wizard. It could be anything. It could be our calls for tonight. I don't know. And that's the problem. But anyway, we got a whole bunch of great calls for you. We're going to get started right after this.
High Sheriff Hazard is a hard man to be. High Sheriff is his only plan. He digs through pockets, takes what he can, for he's High Sheriff Hazard. He caught me one evening, and here's what he said: "You look like a Russian, you look like a red, and if you're fond of your skin and your head, beware the High Sheriff of Hazard."
Okay.
Daniel was still on the stage. I don't know why it does that. Like, I'm trying to put the stuff together so that we have two people on here, and apparently Daniel is taking up one of the spots, and I don't know why.
The old switcheroo.
Our streaming software is weird. I'm also kind of weird because we have a big announcement for you guys, and I totally forgot it when we were just chatting. And I just totally forgot that. Yeah. The very first issue of Red America, the theoretical journal of the American Communist Party, is now available. You can find that on our website at acp.us. I've got an essay in it. Eddie's got an essay in it. I mean, look, the U.S. hasn't had a Marxist journal like this since the old party liquidated its party or its journal. And that's before it even liquidated itself as a party. So it's been a minute. And honestly, it's genuinely an honor to be able to be part of that, for bringing Marxism back to this country. Which, I mean, if you would have asked me 10 years ago before I met these guys, I never would have told you that was possible. So it's been a wild ride since then. And yeah, I'm I'm very excited for everybody to dig into that.
Absolutely. Yeah, much has happened. I'm also very excited about it. I've seen firsthand and experienced firsthand the way bourgeois academia, chews up and spits out anybody who tries to bring a real Marxist analysis, or anybody who criticizes the CIA-funded Western Marxists. And, to be able to not only take part in ourselves, but to give a platform to real Marxist-Leninist thinkers and organic intellectuals is really exciting. I think it's going to be a really positive thing for the party and for the country in general. So make sure you get a copy. You won't regret it. The articles in there are fantastic.
Yeah, and by the way, if you're in the party, I want to encourage you to, if you're theoretically advanced and you feel you can contribute, submit something, right? That we're going to be one of the big ideas we have with this is to create an atmosphere of solidarity within the actual communist movement and between genuine Marxists. If you remember, there's that old Lenin quote, right? Like, what we need is the unity of Marxists, not between Marxists and the falsifiers of Marxism. So in general, we'd like it to be a place where everybody can remember we're all on the same team here. And at the same time, we can discuss and debate all of the important issues of the day. My first piece in there, the one in this issue, for example, is it's called In Defense of 1776, towards a concrete position on the American class struggle. And it's a comradely response to Paul Cockshott, who's a good friend of ours. Fantastic contributor to the Institute.
He retweeted me today. I was like, yes, it's always feels good.
And he's so brilliant, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like his knowledge in the areas of cybernetics and mathematics. I mean, he empirically debunks the entire so-called economic calculation problem. So like, I'm arguing against him in my essay, yes, but it's only because my area of expertise is different, right? And so in this way, we can sort of help each other, just as reading his work has helped me. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just really excited for actually productive debate, something that's also been missing in this country for quite a long time.
Absolutely. And there's so many interesting debates to be had in the field of economics. Like economics, which is mine and Paul Cockshott's field, is just like overloaded with what we call the neoclassicals. And a lot of the Western Marxists have ceded ground to the neoclassicals. Like there are Western Marxists who deny the labor theory of value, and they cede that to the neoclassicals, which is basically just giving away, they're admitting that there can be no scientific analysis of the economy, which is complete bullshit. And Cockshott has shown how, in the heavy industries, labor time is still corollary to price. Although, we know that price can detach from labor, especially with, like Gucci belts and those kind of commodities where this sort of sign value is created. But, when it comes to the base of the economy, heavy industry, labor time is still correlated to price. And I don't know, Cockshott has shown this, and it's been hugely influential for me because Marx attacked the classical economists, and then after him came these neoclassical economists who made up all this new bullshit. And that's the kind of stuff that Cockshott engages with, and that's the kind of stuff that Red America will give us a platform to take down and explain to people.
100%. Not to mention, there's financialization to deal with, right? The divorce of value and exchange value themselves, and that contradiction growing to a head. Like, there's so much that what they do is they try to dogmatically apply Marx to right now, rather than the whole point of Marx, right, is that this analysis is in motion as the process is going, which is why, we add Lenin, and why we need a sort of reckoning with how the middle classes are created and then dying away in the US. all that stuff. I don't know. I'm really excited for all that, brother. But I think if you got, tell you what, you guys, the audience, you tell me, should Eddie stick around and take all the calls with us tonight? What do you guys think? One's in the chat. I think we can convince him to do it. I don't know. I would love it if he stayed and joined the show rather than steal it from me, you son of a bitch.
Well, after this, it might be mine forever.
It's just your show now. I'm gonna use the thumbnail for this one that just says Eddie from now on, and I'll show up in a wrestling singlet and pretend to be you at the intro to every show. Awesome. Well, I see a ton of ones. They're getting spammed. So Eddie, sorry, democracy has spoken. The people have spoken. You got to stick around and you got to take calls with us tonight. I'm going to start sharing my screen right now, and we're going to get to this. Let me see here. Hold on. I want to go. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. I want to do this. All right. I'm sorry, guys. I'm very, very stupid.
Same though.
All right. My screen is shared and I hear myself echoing, and that's not fun.
Oh no. Mute your StreamYard tab, like I told you.
No, it's you that need to mute on StreamYard, not me. And then go live on Discord. You're not muted on StreamYard. I'm looking at your unmuted.
Oh, I need to mute my mic too? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. Now there's no echo. It's always, it's never my fault. If you guys haven't noticed that by now, I am to blame for absolutely nothing. I'm perfect, awesome, handsome, intelligent, and all right.
And doesn't know how to use the internet.
I don't know how to use the internet. I'm also old. And let's be real, I'm not that handsome or intelligent. So anyway, Daniel, who's our first caller, brother?
Hey, it's Pavel dialing in from Austria in the dead of night. Pavel, take it away.
What's up, Pavel?
It's a pleasure to speak with you again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my first question is in the context of the fact that the incompetent German government is currently in the process of dissolving. I think it might be that they will have re-elections sooner than later. And I currently have no idea as a Marxist if it does not make sense to vote there at all. I mean, the only motivation I might have is that there seems to be also a leftist party emerging, but how left they are, I suspect that they are also social democrats. I mean, they are speaking up against the bullshit against Russia, as well as they are speaking up as far as you can in Germany against genocide. But that's like, for me, the only basis to vote for this one.
Let me ask you a question about that real quick, Pavel. The quote unquote leftist party you're talking about, is that the Die Linke party?
It emerged from it. It's a new one. It's completely new one
of Die Linke. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, because they're the only one I really know of. Maybe Eddie knows a little bit more about Germany.
No, it's basically a person who emerged from Die Linke and basically took like an oppositional position to the Ukraine war as well as the genocide in Gaza.
Oh, that's good then.
Yeah, I gotta look into that because I know the German left is in rough shape. Oh shoot, I did it again.
You're good. You're good. Keep talking, Eddie. He can hear you. Everybody can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, I unmuted myself on StreamYard. But yeah, the Greens are horrible. The Die Linke's, been rough. So I got to look into this new split, but it sounds interesting, depending on how big it is.
Yeah, I mean, they in the past 6 months in the local regional election, they made huge gains. I mean, the biggest gains, funnily enough, this split and this new left split, and of course the AfD, basically the right wing.
Let me interrupt you basically. let me interrupt real quick, Pablo. See, here's the thing with these groups that call themselves left, right? But they're actually super reactionary and
I know,
liberal
and
the
that's
way
my
Doublecheck
reservation.
is, right? I don't know about there, but in the U.S., there is verifiable evidence that the ruling class has been doing this on purpose for decades and giving us these very socially alienating organizations and individuals in order to sort of turn people away from the left as they see it in periods of crisis. It's almost like a defense mechanism for the system, right? If Marxism and communism are the way out, what you do is you put forward a horrible thing that 90% of society is going to be repelled by. You put that forward and you call that Marxist, communist, whatever. Now, in the US, we got this for so long that people just began believing that's what left was and embracing it, right? And so now we come along and we begin a real left-wing movement in this country again, which we haven't had for decades. And all of these reactionaries are going, they're not really left-wing, they're actually secretly conservative or whatever else they say about us, right? So it's this weird
They are
topsy-turvy
getting
thing. And my question for you is this the sort of the way that they look at communists in Germany now too?
I think that open communists, they do not have currently a real voice. I mean, the problem is I do not know how to classify this party. It is for sure more left to what currently there is, but I do not know if I'm here speaking about social chauvinists or not. But what's interesting is they are getting smeared as being right while being anti-war and anti-genocide. So this is at least something positive for me. So I'm also going by the smears of the other parties.
Noah, listen to the description for this party. This is their Wikipedia page, which is obviously gonna smear any real left-wing party, but the Sarah Wagenknecht Alliance.
Exactly.
Yeah, it says it's a political party founded in 2024 that's been described as left-wing populist, left-wing nationalist, socialist, culturally conservative, socially conservative, Eurosceptic. The party is skeptical of green politics and support for Ukraine in the Russo-Ukrainian war and has been described as Russophilic. So that makes me think it's a solid party if they're being smeared as all those things.
Definitely. That sounds really good to me, actually. It sounds like a lot of the things they say about communists.
That's what I mean. I go by the smears.
Right.
I mean, that's a good rule of thumb, Pablo. Believe me.
Looks like they're getting some good
probably
percentage
I will
of
try
votes,
try to apply there. And my second point is, I spoke with Noah last time, I will try to find someone. I do not know, Noah, if you managed to find a contact in Austria or in Germany whom I could contact.
You know what? I began looking into it. I got sort of sidebarred by a very important issue that took up a lot of my time.
You can just send it to me via Discord if you find something.
I will. I'll definitely. I'll send you I'll get to it. I'll send you a DM on Discord and make sure you get.
I know you are busy. Yeah, I know you're busy.
Well, I actually was. I was sitting down to start because I was just going to ask Chris. I mean, it's not like a lot of work for me. But the issue was like as I was sitting down to talk to him, like, and Eddie knows what I'm talking about. I'm not going to like speak on it
crazy situation,
but there was like a very immediate situation that demanded all of my attention. So I apologize. I'll get it for you before next week, though.
It's fine. You don't have to stress yourself. I would just appreciate it. I'm on my first steps. So as a Marxist, I'm really just a beginner here. So my question is, how do you approach these capitalist realists? I mean, people who are disillusioned with the system, but basically accepted their role as a neo-serf, if you want, and basically say, well, it is as it is. the ruling parties and the ruling class are basically a new aristocracy. We cannot change it. So we have basically to submit to them. The system is like this for over 400 years, so it will not change. How do we approach such people? Because for me, to energize something like this is extremely, I think, difficult. Even worse are anti-communists, because there you basically have to take out literally history books and slam them on their head with the book. Even then, they might not accept a Marxist approach.
You want to take this one first, Eddie?
Sure. Yeah, that book was extremely popular with young leftists in America. Or the book I'm referencing is Mark Fisher's Capitalist Realism, which basically makes this argument that there's no way out of capitalism. David Harvey has made this argument as well, that capitalism is too big to fail. But I mean, these people also, one of the big failures in their analysis, and I guess I don't know about Mark Fisher so much as David Harvey, but they consider China to be neoliberal capitalist. So I guess if you see China and all the existing Marxist-Leninist countries as capitalist countries, then it is easy to say, you know, well, socialism, there's no way out and all we have is capitalism. But I mean, clearly there are real alternatives that are being constructed and built in practice. And I think, like, I get, like, people get frustrated because the system is so bad right now, and they just want immediate change. And also, we live in a world of instant gratification, not to sound like a boomer, but that's very true. And, like, you know, speaking on American history, it's like we've had a radical transformation in this country almost every 70 years. You know, 1776 revolution, the Civil War, the Civil Rights Revolution, and now we're ripe for another transformative change or another mass movement. And, you know, we've seen mass movements rise up in the past few years, Occupy Wall Street, the George Floyd protest, but they weren't met by a communist party who was ready to say, here's the theory, you know, here's a vehicle for change, you know, join our party. They were met by the Democrats who co-opted them. And, you know, it's very similar things in all the West European countries as well.
Yeah, the Greens, for example. The Greens,
absolutely.
For example, I'm of the opinion, yes, you have to approach, for example, climate change, but you have to do it on a socialist platform. Otherwise, you will never get anywhere. Anywhere.
Couldn't agree more, brother. I'm going to leave you with this. Anytime they talk about that, like capitalism is invincible or whatever, here's what I do. I say, look at history. Look at just how the world works. Everything is always already changing. It is always already changing. Like a giant social change, a revolution doesn't happen because we want it or things are bad. It happens because we cannot go on in the old way anymore. That is what creates revolutionaries. And that is when we participate in that change already happening. Look around, things are getting bad, right? And if we want to get out of this, we can't just rely on the elites to be nice. We're going to have to do it ourselves. Me, I plan on doing my part. I see it as my duty. I don't know about you. Whatever you think you want to do, by all means. But that's how, and there's millions like me. And so that's how I approach it. Thank you so much for your call, Pablo.
I'm desperate, Noah. So I will want to start organizing, but I first have to find someone to do it with. In the meantime, I only can read up and try to maybe improve my social skills a little bit, in the hope that, we do not get to a point where supply chains, for example, globally break down because the Middle East is on fire. Agreed. Due to the Nepo imperialists we have currently in charge in the US.
Agreed,
because
brother.
This would be catastrophic for the whole world.
And if they do, be ready. Be the people that can fill in when the state collapses. Thank you so much again for your call. Pablo's a regular, and he always has really, really good stuff to ask. Before we get to our next call, though, we got a bunch of super chats and stuff that I think Eddie was going through. So let's
Yep.
line them up. Let's line them up and knock them down, brother.
Absolutely. We got first up here. Do any of you use modafinil? I've taken it like once. It's like Adderall, but you don't feel like you're on meth. But I know a lot of like I've heard Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street. He talks about using that. Like it's one of those focus drugs that's non-stimulant. So
Is
I
it?
don't know if I've talked about this quite a bit, ADD and like stimulants. I understand why people have to take psychoactive drugs to get through life under capitalism. And, maybe if you feel like you're one of those people who have to do that, modafinil might be better than, one of the drugs that's basically chemically the same as meth. But.
Is it actually like a drug, or is it like a supplement, organic kind of thing?
No, it's a drug. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a controlled substance, so you can only
Okay.
get it from pharmaceuticals.
Cool. Yeah, I have no idea about that kind of stuff. Sorry. Battle Cossack with the 100 Argentinian dollars. Thank you so much, Battle Cossack. We love Battle Cossack. He says, I've never expected RT and the Russian spokesman at the UN to defend North Korea about their nuclear tests. Looks like this narrative about North Korea being an Orwellian state is starting to crumble. Look, Russia is stepping up in a big way geopolitically, and people are starting to take notice in the West. And I think that's a very progressive, positive thing. Because when Vladimir Putin says something like this, people are forced to listen because they know what he's going through right now. They know that he's leading an anti-fascist war. And they know that it's our government on the wrong side of that war. So I think the more he says like this, the better. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, I agree, and I've been, to take things in a little bit of a different direction. I've been also shocked by the amount of like viral videos that me and other people have been able to get in defense of the DPRK. It's almost like the US propaganda has backfired. Like they've made the DPRK seem so comically ridiculous that when you give an alternative narrative, at first, people are fascinated because they're fascinated by the DPRK and these crazy stories they hear. And then when they hear the reality, it's like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. It doesn't really make sense that, Kim Jong-un is controlling every single person's life and controlling what haircut they get. That doesn't sound like reality. And then you tell them about the Korean War and that, we're the ones who killed 20% of their population, not the other way around. We're the ones who divided their country, the Korean Peninsula, which had been one unit for years and years and years. And nobody could even imagine a divided Korea before what the U.S. did. And that was, some U.S. military higher ups drawing a line on a National Geographic map. They had no knowledge of Korean culture or politics. So you tell Americans this, and it's these narratives, these anti-DPRK propaganda narratives are getting more popular. There's some viral videos on YouTube of like two guys going to the DPRK to get a haircut. And they'd basically just say, yeah, they gave us a haircut just like any other country. Our ideas about them are like pretty racist and stupid.
The water park videos went viral, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's weird because it was a narrative that no one questioned, right? Even my wife, when I began talking about North Korea, was like, whoa, North Korea?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's not that she's not smart. My wife is far smarter than I am, by the way. Like, for real, far smarter than I am. But it's just like, we're not like sort of incentivized to think about it ever. It's just sort of filed in a category in our brains that we ignore for the most part. But then once you just start thinking about it, all you have to do is think about it for a minute. And you're like, yeah, that sounds like a cartoon. Like no leader in history will ever be able to force anyone to get the same haircut. That's crazy. And all this like people eating rats and rats eating people and Yenmei Park's 10 grandfathers that all got murdered and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's just like, it falls apart the minute you start thinking. And I think it's a sign that the abstract sort of distrust in media is becoming more concrete in our era because it has to. I don't know. Let's keep going, though. We got more. Another one from Battle Cossack. Uh,
I had a real funny joke, but yeah, let's
no,
move
no,
on.
let's do.
You
Let's
just
do
did
Eddie's,
I was
I
trying to
want
talk.
Eddie's funny joke.
I was gonna say I'll never forget one of my wrestling friends who I turned into a communist after a long conversation. He like looked at the ground. He's like, "Wait a second, are you saying?" Or no, he didn't even say, "Are you saying?" He goes, "Wait a second, North Korea are the good guys?" And that's like the realization that everybody has when you talk to them about the Korean War for like 5 minutes. They're like, "Wait, everything I know is a lie."
That's
It's a
called
good issue,
becoming a
Doug.
communist. All right, you read this one, brother.
Comrade Quarter is being attacked by the U.S. State Department. They closed down his TikTok account, had to liquefy the Revolution Report inside the U.S. He was one of the few first Marxist YouTubers I've met. Yeah, Don's awesome. He's still gonna be doing content, but he has to switch to being entirely independent. Because if he works with, if he's running an organization here in the U.S. while he's working for RT, the people who work with him are going to be put at risk by that because of the crackdown.
It's
on
really
RT and
scary.
Russian media.
It's so
Yeah.
scary that all that's happening, brother. Like one of our closest contacts at RT, I think she's a junior producer there. I won't say her name, obviously, but they raided her house. Like she texted me, like, "No, I'm really sorry. We're not gonna be able to work together. I'm basically fleeing back to Russia right now." So look, this is real, and lawfare is one of their favorite weapons against anyone who wants to stand for the American people. And so I want to emphasize for anyone interested in the class struggle, make sure everything you do is done smart. Make sure you're following the law, right? The truth is on our side here. That's what we need.
Very true. Good advice.
Michel Vincent Corbeau. I can't do the French accent, or I would try. Don't be fooled. Antifa / alt-right conflict is really just a civil war between different factions of American fascism. Both emphasize ID and violence. Yeah.
Based.
Absolutely. Like I can't think of anything to say other than
Based.
I mean, I have one thing. Haas made that point the other day, and it became very clear for me that this is true when our comrade Emery got attacked on the street by like one of these like DSA Troger looking people.
like lumpen wizard scumbag.
Right, and it's like, Emery, some people know that I struggled with chronic Lyme disease growing up, and Emery has been doing preventative work against Lyme disease in the Midwest in his community, which I just, really hit home for me. I thought that was so beautiful. And it's an overlooked issue. The prevalence of chronic Lyme is going up and up and up. So that obviously had a personal effect on me. And then I see him going out in the community and getting harassed and attacked by one of these DSA people who considers themselves a leftist. And it just became so clear, like we're trying to work in the communities and they're coming up and harassing us and attacking us and screaming at us. What the hell did the fascists do in Italy and in Germany? That's exactly what they did. They would attack the communists who were out organizing their communities. So it's very clear to us now that the alt-right and the Antifa play the same role.
100%. And it's just like the fascists in Germany. They believe that the independent subjective will is the primary thing that decides and defines material reality. A Marxist would say, of course, that isn't the case, right? They say that because they say they're left wing, that makes them left wing, because that some vague idea within the realm of their own head is somehow left, that they think the word communism. This makes them left wing in reality. But in reality, we see precisely by this harassment what forces they serve. What actually happened there was a communist was trying to help his community and get medical care to them. And this person intervened against the people getting medical care. That's the reality of the situation. I don't care what this wizard wants to call himself. Magic spell ain't going to work. Call yourself whatever you want. It's not going to change you into that. ReZero
Let's
co-creator.
go.
Just finished reading Purity Fetish and ordered Jazz 3. Eddie and I actually worked on a thing for Jazz 3 together. He wrote a small part of the Against the Fake Left essay and helped me sort of structure it. It would not be as good as it is without Eddie, believe me. My writing is passable at best.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think it's a good article. People will like it. Touches on some of the themes we just hit on.
Jeff,
thank you.
no,
Big
thank
20.
you.
Let's go. Thank you, man. Appreciate that. Been feeling down lately. However, Eddie's speech on Che Guevara at the convention is such an uplifting video. Thank you, comrade. Absolutely. Thank you, American Bolshevik. Yeah, that was what I intended it for. I'm glad to hear that you found it inspiring. It was supposed to just be, a call to action and an uplifting speech. And I mean, that's truly how I see the world. I really am not into this nihilistic capitalist realism thing. And sometimes like we get beat down by life, and that's just natural. And there's nothing wrong with not feeling uplifted and high energy all the time. Life goes in waves, and you gotta do your best in the bad times. But I'm glad that speech inspired you, and just know that you do have more power and more ability to change things than they want you to think. It's just a matter of not listening to the bullshit propaganda that tells you to be a doomer, and going out and putting the work in. And if you do everything that you can, one day at a time, you will find other people who do everything they can one day at a time, and before you know it, you'll have a collective rolling, which is what we've got now. And we're continuing to grow and pick up steam. So
Look, when one of us falls down, there's at least 10 people to help pick them back up. That's how we roll. All right, speaking of rolling, let's keep rolling along. Who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey guys, we've got Dale Gribble.
Dale Gribble from Arlen, Texas?
Sadly not. I'm originally from Alaska.
Oh, I thought I was
that's
going to
kinda
ask you how Boomhauer's doing.
Doing
All right,
pretty
that's
good.
probably a joke only us old people will get.
yeah, I don't even get that one.
It's from
used
King of
to-
the Hill. Like best
Yep.
animated series of all time in space.
I like King of the Hill.
Maybe Futurama in the early years was better, but yeah. Anyway, what's up, Dale?
Honestly.
Good to hear from you, brother.
Good to hear from you again, Noah. And I'm doing pretty good. I just got off of work yesterday, and now I've got some spare time. So I thought I might try to jump in.
Awesome. What do you got for us tonight?
I heard to summarize a bit. I heard from some people both in just general chats amongst the ACP, alongside, or at least in infrared, and among some other people such as places like PSL, that there's a theory going around that once Kamala wins, there is going to be a sort of separation between the more radical, there's going to be a more clear separation between the more radical wings of the party that were there, that are, say, economically socialist, and the rest of the party, as it has been, as if they win, it's going to show them that they don't need these people to get on their side, because they've pretty much all left.
Mhm.
And as a part of that, we've also been seeing some, at least ideas, or at least some tentative steps towards stuff like PSL and I'm blanking on the name. Other candidate.
The
There was another
Jill
candidate.
Stein. Yeah.
Yeah, Jill Stein. It was it was Jill Stein that were it was Cornell West. There it is.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
That were somewhat looking to work together in certain elections. Personally, I think that trying to work together on national elections is just honestly not going to get us anywhere. But I think that this might give us an opportunity to try to work with some other groups locally
Mm.
to try to get some results within our local communities. As a bit of an example, I imagine if we could get a lot of a lot of people in the local city that I'm in, we might be able to help clean up and try to at least plant some trees in the area in the sort of bad part of town right now.
I mean,
And that could definitely help.
look, I love that kind of stuff. I think that if anyone isn't working with us, it's because of some issue they have. We want to work with anyone on projects that'll work with us. I mean, if the whole point is let's get some trees planted in this concrete, ugly ass jungle, then let's just set it aside and get some trees. If you need me to start, using neo pronouns and all this other crazy stuff before we can plant trees, then what you're doing isn't working class struggle. What you're doing is trying to force me to say magic words along with you. And I don't know if you're aware of my feelings on wizards, but I'm not for them.
I'll plant trees with you, but I'm not calling myself Zer.
But that's the thing. It's like that is their
I'll plant
requirement.
trees, but I'm not.
That's their requirement. Like, it's so mind-bogglingly childish and ridiculous to think that like you need me to like hold your weird like hedonistic views on this and that before we can plant trees, before we can stand against war, before we can fight a possible nuclear holocaust. I mean, what are your priorities? At that point, it makes me go, look, you're clearly not working class. You're clearly very comfortable. And this is why you can distract us with all this nonsense. And I'm sorry I'm rambling all over your point and your question, but it just grinds the shit out of my gears. And I can't help it.
I entirely understand. I've dealt with it. I've dealt with a similar situation myself, though as a bit of a silver lining, I have been hearing from a few friends in PSL that there is a decent chunk of people who are, if not neutral, if not entirely positive towards us, at least very much neutral and willing and possibly willing to work together.
Yeah, we think it's probably the leadership.
Yep.
And look, directly to the leadership. We're right here. If you want to get serious about class struggle, guess what? We're here. We're not going away. And we're willing to do stuff together. What does that make you? That's all I got to say on that. I don't know.
That's what all I was going to say is I'm down to work with anybody on anything productive like that. But I wonder, I haven't seen any willingness from these groups to work with us yet, I guess.
Oh, but I do have one other point I do have one other thing to bring up if you guys have the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Let me say one more thing on this topic before you do, Dale. For way too long, these liberals acted as if they owned the entire aesthetic of communism while betraying most of what it stands for. And so they would try to dictate who could do this, who could do that. If you want to be involved, then you got to walk on the eggshells. You got to make sure you meet with HR and do your DEI training and blah, blah, blah. And the reason I think they're all upset with us is because we came and we smashed that situation with a hammer. We're here. We're not going away. We're only growing. And we don't care what pronouns you use. We couldn't care less who you're attracted to. If you are for organizing the working classes of this country to fight for our freedom, then we're with you. And we don't need any of that other stuff. But go ahead with your question, Dale.
Oh, and on a slightly unrelated note, I have been, since I now live in the lower 48, and there aren't a lot of people who are interested in the ACP in Alaska, I've been talking with a few of the others, and I had an idea in mind to try and make it to where we could stimulate a bit of business for both my local chapter, possibly Washington, and also Anchorage, to where we could get to where we could buy specifically salmon from them during the fishing season, and help to pay for a commercial fishing license, and in return we could take that salmon, possibly either dry it or turn it in or use that as an ingredient in ready-made meals and sell that locally to probably all three if we could, but I don't know too much if it would work the other way back, especially with Anchorage. It's probably gonna take too much time there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I like the germ of that idea. It would need some details filled in on how we'd have to go about all that, but I think explore it, see what works and what doesn't. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, I think salmon's a good product, like what Sean says here. It's like the best protein in the world. It's definitely an Alaskan idea, you know, that is very, just Alaskan. But yeah, you'd have to work out the details. But I know there's a group chat on Telegram where people are sharing and discussing business ideas. Yeah, it might be a good idea to share with them, but yeah, it sounds like not a bad idea.
I will add that to just keep all of that salmon away from me. I like breathing quite a bit, and when it's in my vicinity, I cannot breathe. So
That's fair.
I had a friend's mom who didn't believe I was allergic to fish as a kid. Ended up in the emergency room. Ate one fish stick. Yeah, that was bad. Anyway, thank you, Dale, for your call. I love that idea. Look into it some more.
Thank you.
But I think, look, guys, I think that the real one of the big issues with all of these sort of reactionary organizations, and I don't mean reactionary in like the way they use it. I mean it in a materialist sense, as in they're trying to go back to before these crises started arising and before communism came back in the US. I think a lot of it really is that we opened the floodgates for the working class. We changed the rules, right? They're not allowed to have a safe. They spent so many years building a safe space, and we're coming in and saying, look, the real world isn't safe. And we need to acknowledge that. And that's scary. That's scary if you wall yourself all off from the rest of the world in your college campus or whatever it is. And suddenly the real world is there. And working class people have that hammer and sickle rather than just, all your middle class liberal friends. That's scary.
And you know what? Noah, because I was, never deep in that world, but I went to college and studied politics for 4 years. So I obviously met a lot of people like this, and I never fully accepted those ideas, but they really scare you into thinking everyone's a fascist. Like if you listen to the videos from what's that bread tuber, the popular one, Philosophy Tube, and then ContraPoints. Is that what it is? Yeah. They have so many videos about secret fascism, and it's like everybody's a secret fascist if they use this word, it's a dog whistle. It means they're secret fascists, and these secret fascists are everywhere. They're ready to jump out and kill you. So, when some people are like browbeaten into accepting that and they start to see fascism everywhere, and they're super scared. Right. And this is why I was like, even this could be one of the reasons why we were tentative to work with infrared at first, because it's like Carlos and I in the university have been told, these could be secret fascists, these could be secret fascists, these could be secret fascists. You better not work with them or you're a fascist. And it's not just that, everybody who believes this is brainwashed. I mean, it is a form of brainwashing, but it's also like fear. They put that fear of secret fascism into you to the point where you just think being normal is being fascist, or even actual Marxism is fascism. A lot of them truly think this, and this is what a lot of money has been spent pushing this kind of narrative. And BreadTube that's really at the core of a lot of the BreadTubers' message, is that you have to watch out for these secret fascists, which are everywhere.
It's true, and at the end of the day, they think that regular people not having what the all of the opinions they consider enlightened are actually fascists. And so they come up with all these ridiculous things. Do you remember, dude, the rightists trolled them so hard like 10 years ago, right? Where they, on all their message boards, they literally made up that doing this meant white power.
Yeah, I remember that.
Right? The OK sign. So suddenly all these libs are going everywhere and scouring the internet for pictures of people doing this. Right. And it was a joke. They were getting mocked the entire time. Right. They were like, dude, I bet you if we just did something completely innocuous and called it a secret dog whistle or whatever, they will believe it. And it went viral and they did believe it. And then when it came out that it was a setup the entire time, do they admit that they got had? Of course not. They came up with a magic spell, some secret words to chant to make them right. They're like, well, actually, they're all fascists anyway. So when they started doing this all the time, it really was all the fascists doing it. Like, do they not see that? I mean, Engels put it perfectly. These people think that when they change the word for something, they've changed the world itself. And this is how these, enlightened thinkers mock the real world.
Yes, absolutely. I remember that. I remember people sharing pictures of, just random folks doing this, and it was wild. I felt like it was one of those moments where I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Where I'm like, is this not, did you guys and your friends not do this all the time? And then, if you get someone to look, you get to punch them. And if they put their finger in it, then they get to punch you. Is that not a game that you played growing up? How is that now fascism?
I have been punched so many times because of that. My friends and I, we took it a little further though, where we started like just randomly slapping each other in the face as hard as we could. Like you'd sneak up and slap somebody super hard, right? And I was on tour once and I did that to my buddy Derek. He was sitting in the driver's seat of our van with a girl in the passenger seat. So I like snuck around the van and just like popped up and pow, right? He got so mad. He like chased me around the block. Anyway.
I believe it.
we should move on. Who's our next call, Dan?
Hey, we've got John from ACP Ohio, the pun master.
What's up, John? Brother, how are you tonight?
Well, we have some very important questions for you and Eddie. Eddie gets a special pun. So if a zombie is looking to have a protein filled breakfast, what does he eat after working out?
I don't know what.
Bacon and legs.
Nice.
Yeah. Something's definitely afoot with that one. So, Noah, have you heard about where you can find a haunted house?
Where I can find a haunted house? On Elm Street, maybe? I don't know. Where?
At the end of a dead-end road. Yeah. Well, if you make sure you don't have a party there because you're going to get ghosted either way. Yeah, but that said, today's question is, right now, there's a lot of anxiety about the bourgeoisie election. But historically, there's also been a lot of periods in American history where communists have been outright persecuted and prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
What are some lessons we can take from, say, like the Red Scare or the McCarthy era that we might apply now and potentially going forward if the current state gets nastier and nastier?
Look, I think we need to be realistic. I think what all right, let me sort of put this into consideration. We all think that sort of thing only happens in history and in movies, but it's always already happening. The reason it comes out in these crisis moments is because people are being radicalized by the conditions. We have to understand that this isn't a game. This isn't just us saying nice words on the internet. This is a life and death struggle for the American people against the people that are hurting us, against the people that are taking food out of our children's mouths. That's what this is. And they will use everything they can against us. So be safe, be smart, find groups that you can trust. That's one of the major reasons for a party, because we have to have each other. We have to be able to rely on each other, give each other advice, help each other in bad situations. And above all, be above reproach. We all know how the ruling class operates, but we act as if they're not going to operate that way in regards to us. Why are you doing this and that when we know they can take embarrassing stuff and blackmail you with it? You know what I mean? Like, as the crises heighten, if we are successful, then these kind of things will get more and more prevalent. Make sure you're following the law, because the easiest thing for them to do is you to do something stupid and them to lock you up or take your money, take you out of the game. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I was going to use the words live beyond reproach. That was advice that my dad gave to me when we were, so when I was in high school. Social media was just coming on the scene and getting big, and other teams, if you were a good team, they would look through your social media to find anything bad you said and then send it to your athletic director to get you fired. So he basically said, when there's a target on your back, when people are coming for you like this, you have to not give them any extra ammo. And we know that they're going to come for us anyways, but the less that we can give them, the better. And then, we have to understand that, like Noah said, it is a very real thing. They are the ruling class in this country is not going to go down without a fight. So we need to be aware, and we need to be aware that McCarthyism is already happening through social media. Like it's evolved, and now they're able to ban people, suppress people, boost the kind of messages that they want through social media, which is now the main means of communication that people use to communicate. But the thing about social media, it gives them a tool for brainwashing, but it's not as controlled as CBS News or whatever. There used to just be 3 major news stations. Now it offers a platform for us to fight back. But like, be careful what you say on social media. Even if there's a Palestinian resistance organization who you support, before you tweet that out, maybe Google if they're classified as a terror organization. Think like that, and then maybe say, I refuse to condemn this group, because that's not illegal. But if you say I support a terror group, it is illegal. Stuff like that. Just being as smart as we can.
Live beyond reproach became the Midwestern Marks slogan. Anytime Eddie and Carlos and I were talking about what we needed to do about something, that slogan came up. Because that's how we got to live our lives. I also want to mention that during the late 20th century, when our culture started really rapidly deteriorating, right? When hyper-individualism really kicked in, the notion of honor sort of took a back seat. Anytime you talk about such things, you even have to phrase it with a qualifier like, look, I don't want to sound corny, but that, and that's not right. But what I mean is, back in the day, because of notions like honor, there were more straightforward fights, right? What did the FBI? First of all, the FBI was literally organized in order to be an anti-communist organization. But what did they do? They went right after communists without fail, right? But these days, it's a lot deeper, right? There's layers of psyops going on. And rather than direct violent confrontation, that's a thing of the past, I think. Honestly, there's like a sort of multilateral approach that everyone within the class struggle takes. And so there's sections over here that have to do with the law, sections over here that have to do with your money, all of this, sections over here that have to do with fame and personalities and influencing and media. Like all of this combined is the class struggle landscape of the 21st century. And so when we're thinking about how to protect ourselves, we have to understand that they operate with institutions in tandem using all of these rather than just, directly shooting us with guns. That's a last resort. Is it? You got anything else for us, John, or does that answer your questions?
Well, to kind of build on that, what are the best advice that you would give to a young person nowadays growing up in this environment filled with psyops, and essentially many young people now feel a world of diminishing horizons relative to, say, even the older Zoomers and so on? What advice would you give to young people nowadays growing up in this kind of environment?
This is something I ask myself every day. I have he's going to be 15 next week. I'm going to be a 15-year-old son. And that's where he's at, where he's growing up, how he's growing up. And the thing I hammer home to him the most is to question things, to not ever just believe people, to find out for yourself. I tell him, look, you're smart enough, and everyone here watching this is smart enough to think for yourself, look for evidence, and genuinely think things through logically. Dialectical logic, obviously, but everyone is smart enough to do this. All you got to do is question. Begin questioning. What about you, Eddie? What do you think?
I would tell young kids, this is specific to me, probably this advice, but I would join your school's wrestling team. Hopefully you have a good coach. Not all coaches are made equal, but that will give you community. It will teach you that working hard at something can yield results. It will teach you the value of self-improvement. It'll help you build confidence. It'll help you to be able to feel that you can physically defend yourself. And then I would read Lenin. That's my two keys. Join your wrestling team, read Lenin so you can better understand the world. And yeah, because it really, the sport has really helped me combat a lot of the capitalist alienation in our society and given me a real community that'll never leave. And taught me a lot about life as well. And a lot of those things I think are young men today are deprived of.
Right. And I think it's important to have left-wing people advocating that stuff, because that's a big reason people went to crazy maniacs like Jordan Peterson, right? Because they were sick of being told what to think and sick of being told to hate themselves and wallow in nihilism. And Jordan Peterson would tell them, improve yourself, right? And don't take no shit. And that's very appealing. Now we have a communist party, so not always we didn't always have that, but that's here now, basically, is what I'm saying. I also want to say, like, wrestling's a great way to do that, but that doesn't have to be all you do. Remember, just to be able to defend yourself. Like, my son takes Taekwondo, and he does soccer and football and track and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I hope that those very long explanations answered your question, John.
Thank you very much. Eddie's remarks about the wrestling team give me a lot to grapple with.
Of course they did. Get this guy out of here. What's he still doing here with all these puns? Look, I'm sorry, puns get me, dude. Every dad joke gets me. You guys have no idea. Like I feel like there's like a level where like things are funny, then they're not funny, but then they're not funny into being funny again. Is that just me not making sense, or do you guys view comedy that way? I don't know. Some things are so not funny that they're funny again, and then once they become funny again, they can also become not funny, then funny again. So there's like two layers of transition of a thing into its opposite, and that I think is why I appreciate corny dad jokes so much. Anyway, Eddie will be right back. Who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey, Noah, we've got Advoy. Advoy has a question about our party program.
Advil has a question about our party program. What's up, Advil? I hope you're not a headache. Oh, hey. No, I'm just kidding. What's up, brother?
What's
How
up,
you doing?
guys? Not too bad. How are you guys?
Good. You just got me for the moment. Eddie will be right back. But what's you got a question about the party program, huh?
Yeah. So,
Oh, I think you might be cutting out, brother. I heard
okay.
and then nothing.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Yeah, I was just wondering what would a People's National Bank look like?
That's a good question. So I heard, what would a People's National Bank look like, and then nothing after that. So I'm hoping that.
And then
Okay, is
and
that
how
all?
would
The
it?
whole is that the whole question?
Well, I'm assuming the second part would probably be answered in the first, but the second part is how would it differ from financial institutes like BlackRock and how they handle retirement funds and all that?
Great question. Thank you.
That's a really good question. I think a BlackRock that every American owns a piece of can start you thinking in the right way, right? Because BlackRock isn't owned by everyone. It's not. Getting into how BlackRock works is actually very complicated. But I think, look, the exact way it would be structured would be up to experts. And my expertise is not in setting up financial institutions. It's more dialectics, that kind of stuff. But I think just remembering that it's a national bank rather than a people's bank that could, that, like I said, every American owned a piece of is key. Secondly, it would be this bank that would decide sort of how credit is given for new enterprise, right? And entrepreneurship and that kind of thing. And the actual profit returns from this credit could be done in a way that benefits the people, and the money actually gets put back into the economy rather than taken out of it by some private leeches. Do you want to expand from there for us, Eddie? Because I'm going to run off for a minute myself.
Yeah, it's similar. It would work similar to the banking system in China, or the hypothetical banking system that Gaddafi wanted to set up for Africa. And the reason that Gaddafi wanted an African developmental bank is because the loans that African countries get from the IMF, the World Bank, and these Western financial institutions are obviously not favorable. There's extremely high interest rates. They're aimed at trapping these countries in debt, and they come with strings attached. Basically, we're only going to give you financing if you enact these political reforms that we want to see, crush organized labor, and allow us to exploit you freely, and get rid of any protectionism in terms of trade, and allow for free trade between us and you. So what I mean, this is hypothetically in the case of Africa, what a people's bank would have allowed them to do is establish sovereignty. So they could run this bank however they wanted. The bank could, hypothetically, if somebody racked up a lot of debt, the bank could cancel that debt. The bank could keep interest rates very low. And rather than focusing loans just on what's best for multinational corporations, financing could go towards development projects, towards infrastructure, towards things that are good for the whole nation, for the working class. So it's basically a bank that prioritizes people over profit. And right now we have a banking system that prioritizes profit over people, of course. And this is one of the main differences between China's banking system and the U.S. banking system. They're not trapping countries in debt. Countries are accumulating much smaller sums of debt. And then China is all the time canceling the debt that like African countries rack up. But China says they won't finance anything unless it's equity, which means real capital. It means China's investing in things that will yield more financial returns, yield more money for these countries that they're investing in the future. So this is the power of having a socialist national or people's bank that finances development instead of debt trapping people.
I think at the end of the day, Advil, it's about the purpose of.
Boy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ad boy.
Advil.
Oh, my bad. Daniel
Okay.
apparently can't speak English very well, or there's something wrong with my hearing. Either one. There's probably something wrong with my hearing. No, at the end of the day, really, it's about the purpose of the institution. Is the institution there to make as much profit as possible, or is it there to keep the economy running smoothly and continually develop the country?
The latter makes more sense. I mean, just common sense.
Precisely.
It is just common sense. You're 100% right. Yeah.
And when my book finally comes out, whenever the hell that'll be, you'll see how destructive by the process I call financialization or full financialization has genuinely been to capital itself. Because when it operates on modern finance operates on fictitious capital. And these credits they're giving out actually forces inflation by creating more currency, or which is really less value being added into the economy and more a marker on value that is yet to be created. But because they don't separate value and price, that they come up with an equation that doesn't even out. Right. And compounding interest rates just make them give more and more debts and more and increase and increase and increase until it starts to collapse. And that's what we saw in 2008. That's what we saw like when Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. And every time they do it, they take more and more money from regular hardworking people to prop the entire process back up and go around again. What we're saying is that process needs to stop.
This is what my research is focusing on and mine will be more specific to the development of the stock market and the development of the American banking system, which is now the global banking system. And, I really like Haas's way of framing this is it's a global empire that occupies America. Because that's really what it is. These are transnational corporations, and global financial institutions. That and we need a national bank, not this global bank that tries to debt trap the rest of the world.
Yeah, I agree.
100%. Well, thank you so much for your question. You got anything else?
No, that was all. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thank you. That was great. Daniel,
I love that question.
I can keep going a bit longer if Eddie can.
Yeah, definitely. Should we talk? I want to hit this super chat real quick. Did we talk about this already?
No, pull it up.
Thank you, Manol Joda, for the $5 super chat there. What do you think about the deforestation of the Amazon for soy, for production of meat? How could socialism fix that issue? Well, under socialism, nobody will be soy. Everybody will be a Chad. Just kidding. That was a stupid ass joke. But
Everybody
the Amazon
to do the exercise program that Eddie worked out. that I was doing before I got injured, by the way, even before you people. I was doing that exercise program before it was cool, okay?
True, Noah was. He was the OG, my OG training subject there. But
For real, like
the
I had to annoy Eddie like with questions for maybe a month straight. A few years ago.
That's true. I love those. That doesn't annoy me though. I'll talk about fitness all day. But the deforestation of the Amazon's a big deal because it's one of the main sources of CO2. And this is why I don't like the word climate change. Some people have been like, I always say so-called climate change, and people say why? Because it's not, it's just this catch-all term, and it's used by liberals to push for Malthusianism. It's more so ecological degradation. It's the deforestation, the overfishing of fresh water sources, and the extinction of various species. And but what we don't want, is to say what liberals say, which is, oh, stop industrializing in the global south, quit increasing your standard of living in the global south. You don't get to do that. Only we get to do that in the West. You guys got to eat bugs. We should be pushing for the advancement of energy. But if you have a people's national bank and not a system that's run by the freaking fossil fuel industry, if you nationalize the fossil fuel companies, then you can phase them out and invest in renewables or nuclear, which is really the solution to these issues, which has been completely pushed to the side by the oil lobby because they know the threat that advancements in nuclear energy poses to the fossil fuel industry as a whole, which is the basis of over 90% of the economy. Any industry needs energy, and fossil fuels are the easiest to store, and they're extremely powerful. So we need to invest in new energy sources like nuclear. But the only way to stop this ecological degradation, I believe, is socialism. I don't think, like, capitalism is kind of reforming itself, but it's mostly just green marketing and trying to sell us electric cars. So
100%. And look, the oil lobby's been doing this for a very long time. All those nuclear protests in the 80s and 90s funded by the oil lobby. Reason for that. Also, clean nuclear energy is a lot less of a hassle to create, right? Than shipping oil all around it. Beyond that, look into thorium energy too, because China's been really focused on thorium nuclear research, and it's brilliant, and it's really optimistic the way that kind of stuff goes. But that's a great super chat. Thank you for that, Manolo. Who do we have next? Daniel.
Hey guys, we got Popers in the building.
Popers! What's up, Popers?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess I'll just kick it off. I kind of want to start with a little story from the convention, and then it'll transition to my question I have for you.
This story,
when we were
does it
reading
involve
off,
any wizards?
No. It was at the convention. So.
Well, I was
no wizards allowed.
Yeah, we had a no wizards allowed rule there.
Yeah. All right. So when the party program,
he's like, "Shut up, Noah.
read...
Let me just tell this story."
Oh, my
sorry,
bad.
I had to. Go ahead, Popers.
All right. So at the convention, they're reading the party program, and everybody's hyped up. It's extremely, everybody's yelling ACP, and they get to the standardizations of weights and measurements and making everything metric. And obviously, this is a little bit of a niche topic, but it's actually my career. I'm a calibration technician. So when they read this off, everybody was a little bit quiet. But me in the corner, I was probably the most loud in regards to this one aspect. Just found that really funny. But on to my question. So this is something that's absolutely massive. At first, it doesn't really seem like it's maybe the biggest deal, but this absolutely would change every single aspect of how everything is done in the United States, from manufacturing to just aircraft to our roads and everything. What kinds of plans have been or ideas have been proposed towards this part of the party program?
It's a good question. Look, in order to have concrete plans in this regard, this is a long-term issue. It's going to require us in those those sections of the economy, right? In those trades. For instance, I have to keep metric and standard tools, right? I have very irritating amount of tools in my truck right now because I don't know what hardware I'm going to be facing when I get on a job. So like, and that's me just personally, right? If we're already beginning advocacy in this direction, we need to have an enterprise in the field that can begin it, right? And we're just not at that point yet. So I would say it's more of a long-term goal at this point than anything concrete, but that is the intention for sure. And believe me, I do not want to throw away my wrenches. I don't want to throw away my screwdrivers. I don't want to throw away a lot of stuff, or screwdrivers. I don't know why I said that. Sockets, that kind of stuff. But it will be worth it in the end to get on the same page as the rest of the world and be able to more easily create real international cooperation in industry like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about this today actually on my drive, which is kind of interesting. I was like, that's, obviously the standardization of weights and measures makes sense, but we need to think more concretely about how this would be rolled out. And, in some ways, like Noah said, we're just not at that stage yet, and we'll need to collect more information from our members who are in different industries, who can give us the information that we need. But there needs to be some kind of like almost educational program rolled out first, like it would also involve moving the education system towards the metric system, because you learn the imperial system. So, there would almost have to be some education along with it, because this might be a little bit of a rant. This might not make sense for anybody else, but this makes perfect sense for me. In wrestling, it's the exact same way as with the standard or the imperial versus the metric system. There's a style of wrestling called folk style that only America wrestles, and the rest of the world doesn't do it. And it doesn't make any sense, because by the time our athletes reach the Olympic level and they're ready to go compete against the rest of the world, they now have to change styles. And this is why the U.S. isn't good at Greco-Roman wrestling, because it's way too different from folk style. So it's hard for our wrestlers to make the adjustment. And I'm I wrestle Greco-Roman. I'm an advocate for getting on board with what the rest of the world is doing and just getting rid of folk style. However, there are tons of high school wrestling coaches across America who only know folk style. They only know, the style that they've been taught and that we've been doing for years. So if you were to switch to a new style right away, a bunch of these coaches would just quit. They wouldn't know how to do it. So there would need to, and this is one of the problems with the wrestling community, is there's no money in order to roll something like this out. But there would need to be like a mass education program to teach people how, this new style actually works, teach people the rules and whatnot. And I think there would need to be the same thing with metric to standard, where it would be more of like or metric versus imperial, where it'd have to be more of like a long-term transition with education programs involved in every industry. I mean, most people know how to use the metric system for the most part, but it would take time. But then eventually, once we got used to it, it'd be one of those things where, like, I can't believe we ever used, anything else. How silly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm 100% behind it. It would make my job substantially easier. I mean, this has been my career field for the last 10 years of my life, and I would also say look into, I know you've done a video on it before, but it's called the NIST. It's the National Institutes of Standard and Technology. They're actually like one of the major, or the major organization in the United States that has to do with weights and measurements. So somehow they would either have to be transitioned or just changed.
Taken by the people. Sorry.
Yeah, basically.
No, but honestly, kind of taken by the people. And to begin serving the public interest. Like, I say it in a joking way, but it's kind of true.
And there's another part in the program that has to do with NIST about launching a public investigation into some of these government organizations to see like what they've been covering up. I think we talked about, maybe the program talks about that in relation to food and the FDA. But with NIST, this is maybe off the beaten path, but there needs to be an investigation into their Tower 7 report. Because NIST, basically just didn't ask any questions, and engineers have not been able to show that their conclusions were sound or that their science was sound in Tower 7. And so really these government organizations like NIST need to be seized by the people. They're not the ones we think of, like the CIA or the FBI, but these state institutions have been corrupted. I see the same thing in healthcare, like with the World Health Organization.
Yep.
Or the World Trade Organization. Like, these might not sound as nefarious as the CIA, but these institutions are deeply corrupt. They've been built on a bourgeois basis, and they need to be totally revitalized, which could, be a chance to also move them towards a new system of weights and measurements.
100%. That is that all you got, Popers, or you got anything else for us?
Yeah, no, that was all I had. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you too, brother. Thank you so much for calling. Popers is one of the mainstays of the Midwestern Marx Institute. He is definitely part of this institute, and we love him. I think I don't know, man. Like, I kind of have a preference for standard measurement just because that's how I grew up. But when you talk about education, like, you're not wrong. Like, if I would have just been taught how easy metric was, and how much more logical and sensible it is, then, having a unit of measurement after some old dead king's literal foot, I would have been fully on board as a kid, and it would have made more sense and been easier to learn, and I wouldn't be where I am today.
We use because the international styles of wrestling that I do now, they use kilograms instead of pounds. So I've just started using the metric. Like, when I run, I switch my phone to kilometers. It just it makes a lot more sense. It's the numbers are a lot more round. They fit together. The measurements they fit together a lot better mathematically and just make a lot more sense. So I'm all in favor of the move. I know it would take some learning for me too. I don't know what the hell a pint is or what. I don't even, is pint imperial or metric? I don't even know.
Pint's imperial.
Okay, but so that would be hard for me to.
Right, like pints.
Don't they always say? Is that really imperial? Don't they always say in Britain, like, let's go get a point?
No, they do, don't they? Because it's liter. Oh, maybe it is. Maybe it is metric. I don't know.
But I thought
quart was.
Oh, it's both.
Okay, well, there you go. Because it's pint then quart, and I know quart is short for quarter, and they do it in a 25th, which isn't metric. So that's where my head was at. I don't know.
Yeah, and it looks like there's different kinds of pints based on the country. So the point of this too would be to push for standardization, because globalism kind of has a negative connotation under capitalism because we have this global empire, but we do have a globally interconnected economy, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just from the advancement of the means of production and technology. So when you have a global economy, it doesn't make any sense to have different weights and measures. That's the standardization point of that.
Yeah, and it's just updating to where we are in our productive forces. It's something that's lagged behind that needs fixed. And there's a lot of stuff like that. Anyway, who do we have next, Daniel?
Hey guys, we got Orange. Orange called in last week and filled us in on the Sudanese civil war.
That was really interesting. I promised Orange that I was going to start looking into this because it was so fascinating listening to him talk about it, and it's just something I didn't know a lot about. Unfortunately, some things came up, and I honestly haven't had the chance to do much of anything. So, yeah.
Before you go, I was at a Palestine event yesterday. It was a concert, and one of the rappers they brought out was Sudanese, and she was making a statement about Sudan, and I was, me and the person I was with, we didn't really know. So I'm excited to learn some more.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to follow up on last time too, because I feel when I was talking last time, that it wasn't really clear how it ties like internationally, and it is it is uh, related to imperialism. It's not just isolated, you know. Yeah, a lot of the news you'll see it will make it out to be just two generals fighting a war for power, and everyone's like sad and being killed and so on.
You know what's weird to me, Orange? Always, always, the ruling class talks about people just want power. No war in the history of war has been for some like mystical, vague idea called power. Wars are waged for real material reasons, you know?
Yeah, yeah. People aren't just gonna go die for like that
Right.
vague idea.
Like the
of
army's
power.
just like, dude, we got to get this guy a bunch more power. Like, how do you even measure this power? You know what I mean? It's so vague and silly. I don't like it's one of those things that like I literally don't understand how people actually never think about that narrative and how it doesn't make sense. Right? Like we were talking earlier about North Korea, like and the haircuts. Like I don't get how people don't just go, wait a minute. But we don't. That's just not how we think of it about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Frippa said, hold on real quick. Frippa says that NOAA power is measured in watts. That's incorrect. NOAA power is only measured, the power of a given NOAA, obviously, is only measured in the amount of wizards that you have slayed. Go ahead, Orange. I'm sorry I interrupted you with that.
Shut this guy up already.
No worries, no worries. No, I wanted to mention the international elements. I think I mentioned the UAE, the bank account in the UAE. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned that the UAE is the main supplier of the RSF militia. To the point where if
now can
UAE
you for people who weren't here last week or who don't know a lot about this, can you explain what the RSF is before we go into it?
Yeah. So right now there's a war between the army, the Sudanese army, which has been in power since independence, and the RSF militia. This militia is originally from Darfur. They were originally to put down a rebellion in Darfur. But since then, they've grown and they've managed to get certain international connections, specifically with the UAE. They have their own companies and so on. And over the course of this war and previous wars, they've committed unspeakable crimes, which are like I don't think that there's much comparison outside of the genocide in Gaza for the kinds of savagery that they get into.
Okay, got it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. You can keep going.
What I was going to say is that this RSF is mostly funded by the UAE, but obviously I don't want to make it seem that the UAE is acting in isolation, because they're not. The UAE has like a couple months ago was placed as a major defense partner by the US in the region, in East Africa, in the Middle East, and in South Asia. And the UN, which the US is obviously on the Security Council, has almost refused to actually call out the UAE and condemn it and sanction it and so on for their support of the RSF. While the US, in the meantime, is pushing for negotiations with the RSF, knowing that the RSF would collapse tomorrow if the UAE were to stop supporting it. And the proof of this is that a lot of these, like most of their soldiers now are from other countries. They've been like we found like South Sudanese mercenaries in the middle of Khartoum, in the middle of the capital. And there's generals in the RSF saying that they have soldiers from Mali and from Chad and from Libya and so on. A lot of their Sudanese soldiers are either dead or injured.
Man.
And then, yeah.
No, go ahead. I'm
for
sorry.
the-
I was just that. Wow. Like no, having
I have a million questions.
right, like having
Yeah.
the majority of the soldiers from other countries says quite a bit. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I'm not quite sure if it's a majority, but it is at the very least, it's a large portion of their soldiers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who?
Uh,
Oh, sorry. Just keep going. Keep going. I don't mean to interrupt.
on the as far as the army is concerned, the main support has been from Iran, and to my knowledge, fairly recently, Russia.
Mm,
Iran has been providing drones for the army, as most of their actual war crimes, because they have committed war crimes, is indiscriminate bombing. They used to have these very old planes where it wasn't really like you couldn't like target the bomb or something. They would just bomb the whole area, civilians and all. So recently, Iran gave them drones to fight with. And then Russia, there's a CNN article, if you look at it, they're saying that Russia is supporting the RSF through Wagner, even though the head general in charge of the army, General Burhan, who's also the head of state, has denied this. He also denied any involvement of General Haftar, even though I'm not sure if that has changed or not. I didn't see any follow-up on it.
mm.
Yeah.
So I get, unless you want to jump in with the first question.
No, go ahead, Eddie. You're good.
I guess in your, assuming you're a Marxist, who do you think, or what should be the position of American Marxists on this issue? Like, should there be support for the Sudanese armed forces establishing sovereignty, or should we focus our efforts on calling out the UAE funding? Or
Calling out the UAE mainly.
okay,
It's
I know it's a tough question. I'm asking for your opinion, but
yeah. I think the main thing should be calling out the UAE. I don't think there's much need to outright support the army. I guess for me, because I'm Sudanese and it's relevant for me, I do support the army, but I don't think that the American Communist Party really needs to say much other than the UAE is out funding these war crimes and making this happen against the state of the country.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, like I think there's this like sort of mythology created by anti-communists like trots and stuff like that. That that you know, the whole neither Moscow nor Washington narrative applied to the world. But look, in any given situation, there's a progressive force and a reactionary force, right? There's something that's in favor of the class struggle and against it. And our job isn't to sit back and act as if we are these like pure moralist whatevers that we can condemn both sides. No, our job is to understand what the progressive force is. And I think the UAE funding them is a very good giveaway of who's on what side here, you know?
And Iran and Russia funding the other side as well.
For real.
Yeah. I'm only hesitant because the army themselves have failed to develop Sudan historically.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the comparison I normally make is like with the Chinese Civil War or the Japanese invasion of China, where like as if there was no Mao in that scenario.
Right. Let
Does that
me
make sense?
interrupt you
Like,
real quick. Real quick, Orange. I'm really sorry. Who is this weird dude in our chat? Like talking about his mansions and other weird stuff.
I think it's like a 15-year-old or something. He seems like 12.
Right. It sounds like my son's like people he knows at school going, yeah, but my dad got a mansion, bro. It's like, dude, shut up. Sorry, go
Can
ahead.
I?
Like we're trying to listen to this brilliant analysis of Sudan right now, and dude's like, yeah, but I have all these homes and blah blah blah. Like, no one cares. Stop. We know you're lying anyway.
Can I say something quick? This is the Domenico Lacerdo little infographic that I have up on the screen now, where that he used to basically describe the priorities of what a Marxist should support. And he taught, the Western liberal tradition is private property is at the bottom. Then you have civil and political rights, then identity politics, versus the Marxist, Hegelian, or Chinese tradition sees sovereignty as the roots, right to economic well-being as the trunk of the tree, and then civil, political, cultural, environmental rights. So it's from my extremely limited understanding of this issue, it seems like a struggle for national sovereignty, the roots of the
the Sudanese army, not the Sudanese establishment, I guess pre-2022, we've been like very consistently anti-Zionist. The Israelis were very much involved in the two civil wars that happened in the south. They helped organize the original rebels, the Anyanya, and which then later became the SPLM and eventually split the country in half. We've been under like a sanction regime from like the 90s until 2017, and so on. But I guess my own criticism comes from me being like from Sudan. It appears to me that they want sovereignty without actually doing what is necessary to have sovereignty. They want to be independent, but at the same time, they haven't developed the country, for instance. Or if they haven't done like major development projects in the country, and have made themselves sort of open for these rebellions, because obviously these rebellions don't just appear from outside. It's that there's an internal contradiction which is then expanded. But as far as the I don't think that this is something that's really to be concerned about the American party as much as it is an internal concern for the Sudanese.
Right. I would say probably since the UAE is obviously, it used to be a British oil state. Now it's just a Western imperialist arm. Like that should probably be our main focus. And I mean, the UAE acts as a proxy in a lot of ways. They were also, we always call it the Saudi bombing of Yemen, but the UAE was involved in that as well.
Yeah.
So.
And I think I mentioned last time, these RSF militias were hired by the UAE to help with that intervention in Yemen and to fight the Houthis. So the same militia is now fighting in Sudan.
Right. This needs to be something that we talk about more. It'd be a good idea for like some TikToks for me to talk about the US UAE connection.
Yeah. And it would be, I think, to a certain extent, a massive propaganda win. It's barely mentioned in any real depth. It's called the Forgotten War. So I think if the party is to expose this situation, especially because it's the worst humanitarian situation in the world right now, I don't know. I think it would be a very good propaganda win to say that we were the ones who are speaking about this massive situation, which is being given diplomatic support by the U.S.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point too. It could be um like at that concert I was at yesterday, there was a lot of talk about Sudan, people asking what's going on in Sudan because we were there for Palestine. All of a sudden this person starts talking about Sudan. There's a gap, of information there, and it could be propaganda win, exactly like you said. I agree.
Yeah, there's no real way to actually justify the RSF to any real like moral capacity at all. There isn't even a history in the U.S. of this sort of justification. Like, there's no Zionists. It's not like Zionists, which have had a history in the U.S. This is an alien group committing like the worst atrocities you can imagine. I don't think that there's any way to argue against what you'd say in that case.
It reminds me so much of Libya, where the terrorists were transported in, or these extremists had to be brought in from other places because they didn't even have enough reactionaries in Libya to mobilize against the government.
I also think like it's important to remember that war is a horrible thing, that people do horrible things in wars, even when we consider them the good guys. I recently was telling a very close friend of mine about the chaos that was Russia right before the Bolsheviks began sort of cracking down and putting order in place. The peasant revolts that were popping off spontaneously all over the country were so bloodthirsty and brutal that czarist officers would literally commit suicide when they saw the pitchforks coming for them. Like, they would like do gross things like peel off people's skin, really disgusting things. And this is how war has always been conducted. World War II was no more nice, you know what I mean? And that was the last big war that we had. During the American Revolution, the rightists always want to, talk about these violent communists and this and that. But during the American Revolution, the Sons of Liberty would have a suspected Tory. They would literally pour scalding hot tar on this suspected Tory, burning them alive, and then cover them in feathers and leave them in public square as a warning to anyone that would stand against the revolution. Like, that's the kind of stuff that happens. So, like, I think it's always important that that kind of thing is put in perspective,
Yeah. The main reason I think for these war crimes, by the way, is just because there's like almost no oversight over the actual people on the ground. It's like, just go here, take over the area, and then because the RSF is so like, it's a militia group. Anyone in that militia can just go in and like do whatever they want, loot, rape, and so on, and murder, and so on and so on, and no one's going to do anything about it because there's no oversight whatsoever for what they do. Recently, I saw something saying like over 100 women like committed mass suicide to avoid the RSF.
It's terrible.
That's freaking crazy. It's so much like I mean, and this is I think I'm sure the US and UAE are trying to do similar things, but it reminds me so much of Syria and Libya, where like Assad and Gaddafi were portrayed as these horrific dictators, and the US, the people they were backing were literally like Al Qaeda and ISIS, like the most unhinged people who were beheading people, like kidnapping women because they were learning to read and stuff like. And there was no accountability because it's just, they'll have the backing of the NATO and the US no matter what, or in this case, the UAE. And we know the UN isn't going to do anything against, it's completely toothless. So crazy.
Yeah. Well, worse is the RSF don't even have a political vision like Al Qaeda or ISIS did. They had because they have some vision of like an Islamic State. The RSF has no vision like this. They're just like they literally go in to loot.
And that's and that's sort of what a lack of theoretical advance will get you. We unfortunately got to leave it there, Orange.
Yeah.
As much as I love your calls, I hope you call back next week because I want to continue discussing this topic. I think it's really good and educational for all of us. So I really just want to thank you for your time and your knowledge, brother.
Of course.
We got
thanks.
a
This is
few
really
more to go, and
interesting.
we're already over time. So
Yeah.
call back next week, and we'll keep discussing.
Yeah. I'll go see if I can find a place to put like sources.
That would
here.
be fantastic, brother.
Are
Thank
you in our? I assume you're in our Discord. Yeah, if you could post
Yeah.
some so I could look into them, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
that'd
right,
be
thank
perfect.
you,
I'll probably
Orange.
put it in like current events or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tag me if you could, so I get the notification. Thank you.
Yeah. All
Great.
right.
Well, thank you, Orange. Who do we have next? Daniel.
Hey, Noah, we've got Frederick.
Frederick.
Frederick called in last week.
Oh, Frederick was the guy, the monarchy guy.
Yeah.
I remember you, Frederick. What's up, brother? How you doing tonight?
What's going on?
Dude, you are real quiet.
Well,
Everybody's like so quiet for me tonight. All right, go ahead.
yeah. So, I've been thinking about the election, and from like a right wing perspective, like, if Trump wins, a lot of people are speculating like, there being like, martial law being declared, and multiple ways how that's going to occur, or why that's going to occur. What do you guys think about that? If there is a Trump victory.
I am somewhat skeptical of a Trump victory. I think he is far more popular than Kamala Harris, but I think that if he actually like gets more votes, I don't think they're above rigging it against him, and I think that could cause quite a bit of discontent in the sort of people at large. One, just the just the open rigging would be people who want democracy seeing through that we don't have it, and then the Trump movement itself, right? The MAGA movement. Not to mention all the people that are just sort of not MAGA, but tertiarily right wing, or in their own opinion, right wing. There's all the militias and stuff like that. So I would be worried about mass riots and stuff like that. If Trump wins, my question would be whether they're going to try to shoot him again or not. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, that's another problem too. But also riots, it's probably just going to take place in the cities because you're not going to see that in rural areas.
No, yeah, and I think it depends probably, on how big those potential riots get. I mean, I don't know if I think I don't know if I think that a Trump victory would spark full on riots. I don't know. I just don't think that enough people have Trump derangement syndrome, and a lot of the people who do are middle or upper class who are not going to be the kind of people who riot, but
right, they'll have a march.
Yeah, like the liberal snowflakes that are probably pulling their hair afterward.
It'll be like 100,000 of that famous picture of that lib lady who's like, right?
No!
Yeah. It'll be 1,000 of her just all standing in the street. And then they'll have like another pointless march that does nothing, and they'll claim that they're marching for women again or something stupid.
It'll be the scene from Midsommar where they're all screaming together collectively.
And then all of us old people will jump off a cliff, and that'll be the end of it. That was a good movie, by the way. Yeah,
it was very interesting.
I think you did bring up, are they going to assassinate Trump again? Maybe. If the maybe not. I'm not sure if they're going to. Probably the Secret Service is more confident now hopefully, unless they're being bribed by the CIA and those folks so they can assassinate Trump. But
Look, I have questions about that first shooting. I really do. I don't
do
think we'll
too.
ever get
I do
concrete evidence either way, but it seems rather set up-ish to me.
It,
I don't know.
yes, it kind of does look set up. Who the hell would allow someone to set up a sniper's position on that building?
Precisely. Like, if you know
I
how,
agree. We should probably not
film.
broach this subject, though. We're gonna get banned by liberal YouTube.
yeah,
I agree with what you're all saying, but this is conspiracy theorism,
Mhm.
as they say.
we're no longer allowed to
Uh,
speculate.
yeah.
We'll
Apparently,
do it on Rumble. Yeah, we'll
Right.
talk about this on Rumble next week.
Yeah,
speculation
Maybe
is
a
legal, Frederick. I don't know if you knew that.
questions are illegal.
Mhm.
Doing your own research is illegal.
Yep.
Trust the science.
What was
Yeah,
that
so
lady
definitely-
that sang the Mary Poppins song? Listen to her; she'll have everything figured out for you. But look. Regarding the election, I think that we're at a pivotal moment in American history. I really do, and I think that's the reason we see the ACP coming to prominence now.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah, and
that everybody seems to, be seeing through things the way that they just weren't 20 years ago. However, we are behind organization wise, and we need to sort of grapple with that. That when things really begin to fall apart, if that's the route they go, we need to make sure we're ready, and we need to make sure our communities can be safe and can continue functioning if such a thing were to happen.
yeah, like if the country's like on a full scale like breakdown of society, we would need to figure out how do we contact each other, how we get together, because there's probably not going to be any phones. There's probably just going to be radio.
Yeah, precisely.
And how to like produce food and self-defense. Like these are literal things we need to be thinking about. I mean, people might say this sounds crazy right now, but maybe people wouldn't, because I think a lot of people realize we're in an empire in decline. And historically, does any empire last forever? Not yet.
We're like Rome,
Yeah, it is. It is. I know that's played out a little bit, but it's true. It's accurate.
It's 100% true. And our ruling class literally is Nero playing his fiddle, right? As the city walls burn. I don't know. I am constantly stressed and worried about this because, again, I have a 15-year-old son, right? Like everything I do is to try to make sure he can not have to struggle the way I did, and especially not worse, so it's like I'm constantly sick to my stomach over this stuff.
Yeah, I'm also stressed about it because I got out of high school like a year ago. Now I'm just trying to survive. I don't really want to end up on a battlefield killing my own fellow countrymen.
I feel you right there. That is a very, very, very intuitive statement. Look, that's all we got time for tonight. We're like super over time, but we love talking to you. Call back whenever you want, Frederick. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah.
All right. I think we got one or two more left, Daniel?
We got a couple.
Cool. Let's do it. Let's go to it. Who's next?
We got West Country Commie.
West Country Commie. What's up, bro?
Hi there,
How you doing?
Noah. How you doing there, man?
Good.
Hey.
Good. I'm good.
Yeah.
He doesn't care how you are, Eddie, so screw you.
All right, sorry.
How are you then as well, Eddie? I'll be inclusive.
No, I was joking because Eddie thought he was stealing
I
my
know.
show, and it ain't happening.
Yeah, it's bringing it down here from Southwest England. So I'm going to say, before I ask a question, very big fan of the Institute, and thank you for helping me bring me down the communist road.
Awesome. Thank you. That's great to hear.
I
Yeah,
actually,
but it's just
I actually didn't like you were talking really quickly, and maybe I'm a little stupid and I didn't catch what you said. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
man.
I'm sorry. I will say right now, I'll try and slow it down because I'm a fast speaker. But
Mm.
basically, just saying big fan of the Institute and thanks somebody bring me down the communist road.
Oh, thank you so much for the kind words, brother. I really appreciate that. I'm glad we could help. I really am, truly. So what do you got
Oh yeah, I mean,
tonight?
well, basically, since it's almost election time, I was on the topic of it. I was just wondering between the candidates, which one do you think would help bring a decline to U.S. imperialism quicker? Would you say which one would help in the decline of that the most?
You want to field that one, Eddie?
Sorry, I was responding to someone in the comments
Yeah,
who's
no,
asking
no.
the ACP question.
That's fine. I can.
Yeah.
Look, I think that when Vladimir Putin was interviewed about deals with U.S. presidents, he said something interesting. He said that it's impossible to make a deal with a U.S. president because the U.S. president isn't where the power is in America. It's instead within the machine. And the machine's the word he used. We'd use, the system, whatever, the establishment. There's an entire sort of interdetermining apparatus that all affects each other part, right? And that is where the power really is. If he makes a deal with Obama, Trump can undo it. If he makes a deal with Trump, Biden can undo it. And that happens all the time. And sometimes the presidents make a deal and then never follow through. And so what we're finding out now, and I think what Americans are sort of beginning to catch on to, is that who the president is doesn't really matter all that much. It's part of a show, right? And yes, they have some power, but if you notice, like Trump, with all of his great rhetoric about bringing production back and locking up Hillary Clinton and draining the swamp, did none of it. In fact, when he got into office, he governed pretty much exactly like Obama had governed. And that's just kind of how it goes. So I think no matter who is elected, we're going to experience the same decline. The questions will be in what kind of narratives they can craft in order to swing the political apparatus in a bloodthirsty way towards China or Iran or wherever, right? I think those are the questions, is where rather than how much.
Yeah, I'll answer that though, because I mean, even like with Iran, I mean, hearing Trump going on about like how they're going to defeat Iran, I mean, it's all just talk. I mean, he's not able to do anything about it.
Of course not. Yeah.
Absolutely not.
He can drone strike another general. What did drone striking Soleimani do? All it did was unite the Iranian people against the U.S. and like somebody I know is making some videos about this. The support for nuclear weapon proliferation in Iran went way up after that because they're like, okay, we tried the Iran deal, it didn't work. The U.S. backstabbed us. Let's defend ourselves. So, Iran's getting stronger. They're not naive about the United States anymore. They've been getting less naive about the global imperialism, Western imperialism since 1953, since the overthrow of Mossadegh. So, like, Trump's not going to be able to do anything about it. I don't know. I think we'll just see same old under either administration, which will be the same kind of slow and sometimes slow decline that sometimes, we have a crisis and it goes like we get a little like 2008,
I say it's punctuated by acute crises.
Yes. Thank you for giving me the big words.
Yeah.
Who would have thought I'd be the one with big words?
Yeah, one thing we'll add as well, though, because I mean, just looking at it from America's perspective, it's just going to get harder for them because at least in terms of NATO, I'd say they're the only real capable military force out there. Because I mean, speaking from the British perspective, our military is in a dismal state. Like, it cannot really fight anything. I mean, it would not last a day in the field against Russia because truth is, it doesn't produce anything anymore because it's all been outsourced to other places. I mean, I think Britain's now shutting down its last steel mills, so there goes any more production for that.
Yeah, it's following the American decline, and that's scary. I feel bad for you guys. Like, they should have been learning their lesson.
Yeah, well, I think the truth is, though, Noah, Britain obviously it's the first imperialist power, so it's had been the decline for longest. It's been declined since 1900.
Good point.
Very good.
Good point. All right. Well, thank you so much, brother. We appreciate your call. We're gonna keep on moving. Do we have one more, Daniel, or what's going on?
Yeah, we've got one last caller. We got WizCat.
WizCat. I like that name. I don't know why. It almost made me.
Wildcat.
I almost thought you were talking about a wizard, and I was gonna like talk to Daniel after this privately about the no wizards rule, but no, it's a WizCat. Like it faked me out, right? But
Yeah,
before we get
it's
to you,
not as
WizCat, give
threatening.
me 1 second. I am so sorry, brother. Justin asked me, is Noah involved with the Ohio chapter at all? Somewhat. I'm not officially allowed to be part of the chapter since I'm national leadership, but I try to help them as much as possible, that kind of thing.
Same.
All right.
Mine.
Go ahead, Wiz.
Yeah, that's awesome too. And one of our closer executive board members, Kyle, he still tries to help out with the Missouri Kansas line too.
Awesome.
So he's such a hard worker too, man. I mean, everything he did at the convention, what a hard worker that guy is.
No kidding.
No, a lot of appreciation towards him. But I got to see your message a few weeks ago after my mom passed away that you guys were able to throw out there. And it was awesome that I got to see that. It was one of the chapter executive. He posted that to me, and I got to see that as well. So I was very heartwarmed by your message, Noah.
Well, thank you. I'm glad. I could help a little bit, brother. Thank you. I didn't know that was who we were talking to. was
Oh,
you.
yeah.
But yeah, your chapter executive is a good guy.
He really is, and the whole chapter's amazing. All the people in all these chapters are just so fantastic and such dedicated members. And we saw it at the convention too, with how much energy there was. And you wouldn't see it reported in the media, obviously, how much energy we had in Chicago. But one of the most exciting things that came out this week was the new journal that's being posted that I'm sure will be making waves across the whole community that you guys have built, which is going to be awesome for everybody to read, especially as someone who's studying journalism. This is something that everyone needs to get their hands on if they can.
Couldn't agree more.
But I do want to talk about before it gets going, Eddie. I know you would be a big fan of this question. John Jones versus Stipe. Who you got?
I'm rooting for the firefighter from Ohio, Steve Miocic, because he's a humble guy, my kind of Midwestern, hardworking dude. I love that guy. I've rooted for him for his entire career. John Jones is someone, I through wrestle. He wrestled at Iowa Central, which I had a lot of teammates in college who wrestled there. The stories that they tell about John Jones and the kind of shit he did in college. He is not a good person, but an amazing fighter. Everybody knows this about John Jones. I'm not breaking any news here, but I think John Jones probably out wrestles him. But
DC said it best about John Jones. He's so talented, but he just keeps giving those gifts up, and it's really, really unfortunate to see something like that too with John Jones.
It is tragic. My my college head coach actually beat John Jones in a match in college.
That's
that's amazing. But
John Jones is probably drunk, but
I do want to talk about something that might not be seen a lot within the Communist Party, but something that I find kind of relates as someone in a fraternity in college. I find so much of these fraternities and just men's group in general, they have such a Marxist sympathetic view that they don't even realize. The fraternity that I'm in promotes so much charity, so much community service, and so much making everybody's lives better and coming together as one, to where I've kind of seen the ACP as something that I like to call like frat bro communism, where it's it's just a whole bunch of dudes who just want to make the world so much better, and that's really awesome about the ACP. Frat row communism is the way to go about it. But journalism
Wait
is one
till
thing I wanted to talk
Red
about.
America 2 comes out and you start talking about Bigfoot communism.
Oh, there we go.
No spoilers.
One of the cool things about or not cool, I guess, but one of the things that was interesting when the previous dude was mentioning something about Sudan, it reminded me of the legacy of journalism, right? And how journalism is going to take a huge point in communism. Do you know the picture by Kevin Carter about the vulture and the little girl?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so there was a picture of and this is something that was actually mentioned in class previously. So there was a picture of a little girl who was malnourished, basically starving to death, and she was or a little bit away from the aid station, and there was a vulture overlooking her as she was basically dying on the ground, right? So this is during the Sudanese civil war in the 90s, all that sort of stuff, where um essentially there was a famine as well going on and just a whole cluster of just terrible stuff happening, right? And the question was ethics and journalism. Should he have done something at that point, helped her out? There was a group of enemies coming towards him that would have killed him if he did. So my question is journalism, how it basically transforms the minds of the people. This picture, while it didn't give her immediate help, it raised awareness for famine. So my question is, how is journalism going to play a major part in the hopefully incoming revolution?
I have a lot to say about this, but you can go first, Noah.
I'll be brief then. What were the Bolshevik? What did Lenin attribute the victory of the Bolsheviks to? He attributed it to two things, two specific things. One, their most iron discipline. That's number one. Number two, their newspaper. The ability for the people to share information with each other. Right now, the way the media infrastructure works in this country, that is next to impossible. We have to build up online against overwhelming odds. It's very rare that a Jackson can break through, right? But we're breaking through. And this is the start of change, brother. And I see the new media infrastructure that we can create building upon stuff like Jackson and the Emperor and the Midwestern Marx Institute, right? And creating a new sort of people's sort of infrastructure of information sharing. And it can all be, I mean, modernized and using modern technology. It could all be on one platform. It could all be sectioned out in news and a theory and opinion and entertainment. Like everything can all be centralized and decentralized at the same time using the internet and technology. What do you think, though? Eddie?
Yeah. No, I think it's super important. I think there are a ton of great independent journalists, like the guys from the Gray Zone jump to mind, who are doing incredible work that is such a useful tool for, you know, our political vehicle at the ACP. And the Gray Zone guys, they make a point. They'll never condemn another anti-imperialist. You know, they'll always back up other anti-imperialist voices. But it is just not to rain on the parade, but it's important to keep in mind that even independent journalists, even good independent journalists in the capitalist system are can be opportunists. They can you know, the job of a journalist is to report on the world rather than change the world. I mean, you could argue that it should be their job to actually change the world, but that's what I'm going to say is we need journalists who are actually Marxist-Leninists. We need journalists who are actually dedicated to the cause, actually dedicated to change, what's called an advocacy journalist. And that doesn't mean journalists like Kim Iverson can't be tools. You know, Kim Iverson does some good reporting. But what's better is an outlet like Midwestern Marx. Like, not to toot our own horn, but like if we were able to have as many views as Kim Iverson, because we have that Marxist-Leninist perspective that can help us deconstruct the world. Sometimes independent journalists are just, reporting on the world. I mean, I'm saying the same thing over and over again, but the goal needs to be to change. So I guess journalism is hugely important, but to what Noah's saying, we need party journalists. We need journalists who are part of this party. We can't rely on independent journalists, but we should work with them and utilize them as a tool, because they are such a useful tool, and they're actually a necessary tool. Because it's much harder to break through the bourgeois propaganda without them. But I just want to say, be aware that there is an interest, I guess, for every journalist to do opportunism.
Yeah, Mehdi Hassan.
Exactly. Great example.
Richie Medhurst, all kinds of great people.
But you also
don't lump in Richard Medhurst with Mehdi Hassan.
Mehdi
Hassan sucks.
Never
Richard's
mind.
the kind of guy that we want.
Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's getting late for me.
You're good.
Something so interesting though about American journalism is how corporate it is too. CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC is all for a profit organization. It's not actual journalism. It's entertainment. It's not. And that's the worrying sort of level of journalism that we're seeing. Entertainment's being mixed in with journalism, where it's you have to get clicks here, clicks there, and you'll profitize off of it. Whereas an organization like Midwestern Marks or Jackson Hinkle will struggle because they're not given the things that people want to click on. They're given the actual facts, and the actual facts sometimes can often be the truth that people don't want to click on.
Right.
Which is a struggle for a lot of aspiring journalists too.
The trick is in framing it, I mean, there's a lot of science that goes into it. We could sit here and talk for hours about that. And believe me, we've had this conversation a million times on how to pull people in the different levels of it. Anyway, I want to interrupt real quick. Dude, Ben, it's a call-in show. Stop whining and saying crazy stuff in the chat. If you got something to say, call in the show and say it. I apologize. Go ahead, brother.
All good. Something though, like a lot of journalists are so defeated by the fact that their actual journalism isn't getting reported because it's not profitable for these like news organization medias, to where it's actually a statistic, I believe, that a lot of people who are journalists are more likely to be alcoholics, suicidal, all that sort of stuff. That's very unfortunate, because a lot of journalists are being forced out of the frame because they're not reporting what
the field is actually upside down. I've made this argument before, which makes sense. It's, journalism under capitalism is like the dialectical opposite of what it should be. But in order to be a successful journalist and make a lot of money, you have to be worse at your job. You have to toe the line and do what these for-profit cable media outlets and what their advertisers want you to do. And if you break out of that, you're either not ever going to get hired or you're going to get fired. And then you have this situation where there's these excellent journalists like Richard Medhurst, Aaron Mate, Max Blumenthal, and they're called conspiracy theorists and quacks by these mainstream journalists who look down upon them. And it's actually because the gray zone guys are good journalists, because they are good at their job and do high quality work, that they don't get to climb the career ladder. And those who get to climb the career ladder are the biggest propagandists. And then they arrogantly look down at the independent journalists and, say, you're not, if you were better at your job, you'd be where I am in this position. You're just a crazy conspiracy theorist spreading misinformation. And it's the complete reverse, where all the good journalists don't have jobs, or they have to make their own independent outlets. And all the shitty journalists are getting tons of money and are super arrogant about it. It's like the worse you are at your job in that field, the higher you climb.
And even if you begin as good at your job, working for one of these mainstream media sort of stenographers for the ruling class will make you bad at your job, right? Just working. Michael Parenti talks about this in this book that if you haven't read, brother, read it. It's called Inventing Reality. One of his better books, actually, one of my favorites at least. And he talks about how a new journalist will get this job at the New York Times or wherever, and he'll be full of excitement, ready to expose corruption and this and that. And he'll put together this huge investigation and try to bring down corrupt elites, which he was told his whole life is the job of the journalist, right? But then like one of the people involved are one of the sponsors, right? Or they do ads with the paper or whatever it is. And so his piece gets changed. And so next time he knows to leave them out, right? And then it keeps sort of snowballing to the point where he doesn't even bring up those sort of investigations anymore. And that's where we are for the entirety of mainstream media now. That's just where we are. And fake independent media. Don't forget fake independent media. The Daily Wire and
Alex Jones.
Well, Alex Jones actually does all his own stuff. He's just, we disagree with most of what he says.
Yeah.
But like the Daily Wire is fake independent.
Tucker Carlson.
What is it? The Intercept, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Oh, Democracy Now! And The Intercept are the main examples of what you're talking about, where they pretend to be independent, but they did such great journalism for years, and then somewhere along the line they started taking a little bit of money, and you could immediately see it in the positions that they would take. Like Democracy Now! Has been pushing Uyghur genocide narratives. It's so absurd.
Yeah.
One of the best though things in journalism going on right now is Jackson Hinkle's new Legitimate Target show.
Yeah, I love that show.
It's so fantastic. It's literally one of the best things I've ever seen. What Jackson's doing,
Jackson's the best at what he does, and
legitimate.
And I say that as someone who does something similar to him. Like I'm always learning from Jackson.
Oh yeah, I would legitimately love to just spend 30 minutes learning from Jackson how he does everything he does. I mean, getting to meet Nicolas Maduro and just all the actual people that people want to hear about, rather than, okay, we're going to speak to Israel's spokesman for Netanyahu and listen to him live for 30 minutes.
Right.
Nobody
Jackson
wants to
was
do
legitimately in danger in Venezuela too, and like he could have just dipped out of the country, but instead he stayed and continued. Like he had to do work to make that interview with Maduro happen. Like he's a beast.
He really is.
And
all right,
brother,
I hate to cut you off early, but we're way over time. And I literally like fall asleep before 9 p.m. Like Eddie wasn't joking when he said I have to be up at 11 p.m. for work. But no, it's great talking to you, and I'm really glad that we could be there for you during a tough time. We're all in this together,
Amen. ACP, right?
Hell yeah, brother.
What high energy that was. That was amazing, by the way.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much for all you do, and thank you for the call.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate all your hard work.
All right, that's going to wrap us up for the night, everybody. Another successful episode of Eddie's show.
Yep, I did it again. Go me.
What can I say? You're great.
I'm going to cut these up into some clips now. I know Noah obviously doesn't have time for that because he has a real job. But
I'll give you a good one. Eddie is very smart and I am very stupid. Eddie is very handsome and I am very ugly. That's all I got. All right, good night, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you next time.
Stand up, all victims of oppression, for the tyrants fear your might. Don't cling so hard to your possessions, for you have nothing if you have no right. Let racist ignorance be ended, for respect makes the empires fall. Freedom is merely privilege extended, unless enjoyed by one and all. So come, brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rise. time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. Let no one build walls to divide us, walls of hatred nor walls of stone. Come greet the dawn and stand beside us. We'll live together or we'll die alone. In our world poisoned by exploitation, those who have taken now they must give. And end the vanity of nations. We've but one earth on which to live. So come brothers and sisters, for the struggle carries on. The International unites the world in song. So comrades, come rally, for this is the time and place. The international ideal unites the human race. And so begins the final drama, in the streets and in the fields. We stand unbowed before their armor, we defy their guns and shields. When we fight, provoked by their aggression, let us be inspired by life and love. For though they offer us concessions, change will not come from above. So come brothers and sisters,